So if you are watching this, today is Father's Day. It's June 21st. It's funny, I didn't realize that there's so many things that happened in June, like from the NBA Finals to summer solstice, Father's Day, Pride Month, Black Music Month, Juneteenth. Oh my gosh. Like if you live in a city like New York City or like even in the borough, because the boroughs in New York are kind of like their own little cities, like you realize that there's just so much going on. Like the energy is so like high, like right around this like second, third week in June. It's amazing. And this week is particularly this year. There's a lot going on because of the NBA finals and stuff in New York City, but still, it just made me realize, wow, like there's a lot going on. And I'm a Cancer, and we're finally in Cancer season. So Cancer season has started today. So just a lot going on in general this week. And but I just wanted to wish everybody who's a father a happy belated Father's Day because I know this is not going to be posted on Father's Day. But what I did want to talk about in honor of men is sex. Because I know how important that is to fathers. And I know that sometimes for fathers, their biggest nightmare is to be in a sexless relationship. And I spoke about that on my Instagram. I've been speaking about that more from a divine masculine perspective on how they see sex and relationships and how it really is for men. Divine masculine energy is really such an important part of the relationship. I think for women it's equally as important, the sensual aspect and the intimacy part, but I think sometimes women disassociate from their bodies a little bit more than men do, so they don't always understand how the physical manifestation of wanting someone and the desire to be around someone physically is actually a really big part of the relationship, and definitely a big part of romantic relationships. Romantic relationships and marriages are definitely social constructs, but they do add value to our society and people appreciate them and want to be in them. But it's very important for people to understand that resonance is what keep relationships together. And when it comes to marriages, your more traditional like marriages and your romantic relationships in the aspect of how people understand them and perceive them to be, being about like a pleasurable connection and chemistry, sexually, a sexual energy exchange, it's very important for that sexual energy exchange to be the center of a romantic partnership. And a lot of people would be like, oh, well, should it be a heart to heart connection or like other compatibility? But in our society, the difference between like a romantic and a platonic relationship or a sibling relationship or parent teacher, or not parent, but parent daughter, parent son, student teacher, is the fact that there's romantic chemistry. Now, sometimes those things overlap, hopefully not within the family when it's not appropriate. But sometimes, students and teachers in age appropriate situations, mentors and sometimes platonic relationships blossom into something more. But what makes it romantic is the chemistry, the primal energy, seduction, magnetism between the two people is what makes it romantic. And most people want to be in romantic partnerships when they're in long-term partnerships. And if you think about it, it makes sense because to really trust somebody and really want to be in a long-term relationship with them, you want to be able to enjoy them. It's the pleasure that actually makes you want to grow. And the divine purpose of relationships, especially sacred unions, is to help you grow and evolve into the person that your soul wants you to grow into, and help you experience things that help you just become more expanded in your consciousness, and also allow you to fulfill your purpose, whether it's like an individual purpose of self, of healing your ancestral lines, things like that, or if it's your gift to the world to help heal the world, connect the world, share your perception, motivate, inspire. And partnerships, especially long-term partnerships, should be there to support that and align with that, but also like motivate you to continue going. And Our desires and our pleasure are what motivate us to keep the will to keep going and moving and striving and move through these challenges, because it's the challenges that actually evolve us and grow us. But it's the pleasurable aspect of life that makes us want to endure the challenges. So if there's no sweetness in the relationship, if there's no wanting and desire and sexual chemistry, if that dies, then you essentially lost the relationship, in my opinion. And, a lot of us end up in these types of relationships because they're transactional based. They're transactional based, not because people necessarily want that or are looking for that, but we live in a very capitalistic driven society. So it's hard to get away from that when we're all resonating on that on a regular basis. And it's reinforced through commercialism, materialism, um, through the music that we listen to, um, subconscious messages and marketing and all kinds of stuff. So it's hard to get away from. And that seeps into other areas of our lives, especially dating and marriages and things like that. But I wanted to talk about divine masculinity and that aspect of like appreciating the fact that divine masculine energy really resonates and opens up and activates through sexual energy is not a perverse thing. And I want to encourage men to keep that side of themselves and not be ashamed of that side of themselves, because you're that way for a reason. Primal instincts and primal urges are some of the most innate and authentic body conscious things that God has given us to help us navigate the world. And I think men's sexuality and their sexual energy and their interest in sex and the body is a reminder of that. Now, do they need to balance that out with their higher chakras? Absolutely. But the reality is, when you are aligned with your most authentic self and your innate primal instincts, you're not going to do anything that's overly destructive. You're not going to overindulge in things that are going to destroy your life. The problem is that we are born into a society that shames our body, that disconnects us from our body. We lack autonomy over our pleasure and over our bodies. And we get told what it is that we actually should want. We're constantly getting programmed telling us, well, you should want this type of woman, or this type of person, or this type of experience validates your manhood. All these messages that taint what our body is actually feeling. And so in order to be accepted in society for survival, for love, so that we don't feel alone or castrated out of society, we abide by those rules and we abide by those norms. And it starts off very early. And a lot of those things are in our subconscious mind. We are forced to make decisions that abandon our body and our feelings and our instincts, and then we become confused. We have internal conflicts, and that's where the disconnect happens and the issues of the foundation in our relationship start to crumble, because we can't be true to who we are. And so you're not usually marrying or getting in a relationship with the person, the most authentic primal version of themselves. You're getting in a relationship with someone who's playing a role. And usually that role can only be kept up for so long, and it reveals itself in the bedroom. It oftentimes reveals itself in the bedroom, because in the bedroom, it doesn't have to do with the car, it doesn't have to do with the clothes, the bills, the kids, none of those things. And all those things can seem very, very important, right? Because we have to survive, right? We need food and shelter, and we need somebody who's like can build those things with us, but that's all capitalism. That's still all capitalism. That's all run off of those things. And so if you're not really careful, what will happen is, once the roles, you bring that into the bedroom and that does not resonate because you're not really attracted to those things, over time, the connection and just being desired and being happy that you have someone that looks a certain way, has a certain education, all that stuff fades away, because that's not what pleasure is really about. It's not about academics. It's not about any of the things that we put on the pedestal in our society that deems a partner worthy of like a long-term commitment, if we're honest with ourselves. Pleasure is more about how somebody makes you feel. They make your nervous system relax and open and feel safe, and it allows you to be yourself, your most authentic self. And that happens in the bedroom. And if somebody really likes that part of you, craves that part of you, they are going to want to experience that exchange with you in various different ways all the time. And divine masculine energy, even though they don't always articulate it well, but when they're saying things like, they don't want to be in a sexless marriage, or they feel like they're not getting enough sex, or when they even go off and cheat, and they're looking either for validation or looking for somebody that actually does want them, and they equate that with love, that's what's going on. It's not necessarily that the physical act of sex means that someone loves you, but in a long-term partnership, somebody wanting to be near you and having a desire for you is an act of love. And I like to explain this. I don't remember. I think I talked about this live. I make so many videos. I can't remember what I've shared on YouTube versus Patreon versus Instagram versus TikTok versus live streaming. But I remember I explained it like this. I was like, when I have a child, and my baby is like a baby especially, but all my children, no matter what age they are, but especially when they're small and they're super innocent, and when the children are small, they're connected to their primal instincts and their innate energy more than they are at any other time in their lives. And you just love them, and you just want to kiss them and hug them and kiss them and hug them. Now, when they start developing into like these roles that they're taking on from peer pressure or developing their own ideas, sometimes there's not as much resonance. But as their mother, I'm still going to want to hug and kiss them. They may not want me to, but that it's just natural for me to want to be around them because they're my children and I love them and I want to hug and kiss them and hold them and be around them. Unfortunately, sometimes because again of social conditioning, trauma, abuse, emotional baggage, blockages, that will prevent us as our children get older from like hugging and kissing and loving on them. But the natural thing to do when you love somebody is you want to hug and touch and kiss them. And I think a lot of times for men, their first experience with unconditional love is with their mothers, if they had a good experience with their mother. If they don't, you usually can see that too, because it's like, how they operate in relationships. But it's not that, because people will talk, women in particular will talk about men wanting their mother, wanting their wife to be kind of like their mother. But I don't think it's so much that they just want a woman to do everything for them and be so burnt out that they don't even feel like a partner. I think they want that same display of love. When a mother loves her child, she bathes them, she cooks for them, helps them clean up, holds them accountable, helps them be the best person they can be. Usually the mother, a lot of times, is their biggest cheerleader, and they hug and kiss on them and love them and hold them. And so in an consenting adult romantic relationship, that might look more like you love to, be physically intimate with your partner. You enjoy the intercourse. You enjoy like just being around their bodies and touching them. On certain occasions, you might want to bring them breakfast in bed or feed them and nurture their bodies and do things that, make them feel loved. And because men, I think, are used to a lot of transactional relationships because of how they're treated, like in the workplace and even amongst their peers and having to prove their manhood, they appreciate those domestic things a lot of times more often because you can't pay for that. You can't pay for like a well-cooked meal from the heart that's passed down from generations and somebody taking the time to make your plate and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go totally old school, but I'm trying to explain why I believe like these kind of physical displays of affection are really important, and why they also make sense, and why women should consider that too when they are on the receiving end. When you are trying to find a partner and you are thinking about somebody you want to spend the rest of your life with, you should feel comfortable with them in the bedroom. You should enjoy having intercourse with them, and that's something that should continue. If you're ever in a place where you don't, there needs to be some time to stop and reassess. A lot of women have been abused, have experienced assault, are disconnected from their bodies for various reasons that we're not going to go into on this video. But you may not have the capacity to really like merge your life with somebody, especially a man, if you haven't really explored that side of yourself and like really trust yourself and know how to trust your body when you're with someone and know what it feels like to feel safe and feel desire from a really authentic place, not from a place of being programmed like, oh, he's at least this height, he's very attractive, he has a good job, I know he can take care of me. Like, because we live in a capitalistic society, yes, that's important, but it's not going to be the thing that keeps your marriage going. It's not going to be the thing that's going to make people not want to cheat or see other people. And that's on both ends, on the woman's end and the man's end. If you really want to have a really beautiful relationship, long-term romantic relationship, the the sacred energy exchange or sex, the intercourse, the physical intimacy, the manifestation of showing that you want somebody, I would argue is probably top priority in a relationship. And like I said before, I really think men understand this and they feel this in their gut and primal instincts. And I think some women take it as, oh, like that actually feels more transactional. But I would argue to reframe the way you see your body and how you share it. And if you are not ready to share it with someone, and if you're not really truly enjoying that most authentic connection, where it's just you and that person, and it's not about the cars, clothes, bills, credit scores, or any of those things, you have to think about, are you really ready to love somebody long term? Do you really love that person that you're with? It's really something to think about. And yes, marriages go through ebbs and flows, people have health conditions, but even through all of that, if there's a really strong bond in the connection, you're still going to want to be around that person. It might look like rubbing their head, massaging their feet, just being near them. Like I'm sure most people, if you're of a certain age, have experienced when you've been with somebody for a while and their presence just irritates you for whatever reason. It's because there's a lack of resonance. There's a lack of sweetness in the relationship. Can that be revived? That's what a lot of people like to ask. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. Sometimes you've outgrown each other. Sometimes you have different interests. And like the resonance is not there the way that it used to, and sometimes it just never was. You have a lot of people that have been programmed to believe they want something that they really don't. Some people have abandoned their body and their natural instincts and primal instincts so much and allowed outside sources to program them that they went after something they thought they really wanted. And then once they've been in there for a while, the illusion and the mask and the roles can't continue to be played or kept on. And then you're like, why did I choose this? Why did I want this? It's not even pleasurable. And the same thing with women. Um, and prioritizing sex. A lot of times when I talk about sex and that being a priority in a relationship, some women will get triggered. And I think it's because there may be some history, sexual history that, wasn't all that great, or maybe they are in a relationship where they feel like they don't measure up to maybe whatever they've seen or heard about in a man's past. But it's not just about him enjoying you in the bedroom, it's about you enjoying him. Like, if you're not enjoying him, that's a problem as well. If you're not enjoying the sex that you're having, like, as I'm not condoning in any way that a woman be in a marriage and giving her body up or giving sex up. I think somebody talked about, came in my DMs and was saying that, well, I've seen women, try to have sex with men just to keep, like, that's not what I'm talking about. I don't care what type of relationship you're in, what type of commitment. You should not have sex with somebody unless you're excited to have sex with them. Now, sometimes when things get really routine, you might need to spice it up a little bit. But if you are being your most authentic self and you're connected and you feel comfortable with your body and your sexuality, you would naturally do that. You naturally want to explore. You naturally want to try stuff. That's something that's very natural to the human psyche, to have varied experiences, not just in their job or career or things like that, but also like in their sexual life. Like, it makes sense that you would want variety in your experience. And that's on both ends, men and women's ends. Just women have taught to be like super controlled in their desires and with their body, and men are kind of promoted to do both and then not at all, or like pick one side, be a player or be the disciplined father. Like, they have a lot of weird messages that are sent their way too. But this Father's Day, I want you to appreciate divine masculinity from that lens and that perspective. If you haven't thought about that for the men in your life, even if they struggle to with discipline or trying to figure things out, we're not condoning anything that men do that's hypersexual or abusive. No, not that type. Not that way at all. But understanding their perspective and their needs and why they have them. And and we all have divine masculine energy in us, and we all need to honor our primal urges and our primal instincts, because they tell us a lot about like what we need to evolve as a soul. Our mind plays tricks on us all the time, but our body does not lie. And sometimes our body is telling us things that we don't really understand, but it's only because we're disconnected from our bodies and we don't take the time to pause and listen. So I'm really excited about delving more into this topic about body consciousness, and even the masculine perspective, divine masculine perspective of things, because I think it can be very healing in us, helping us understand each other and understanding our reality that we've created, or people, or the reality that people have created for us. And so we can move more consciously, especially in our relationships and in our families. So I'm going to leave some reflective prompts so that you can maybe dig into this a little further if you're on Patreon. And I'll see you guys in the next video. If you want to join Patreon, it's Sex Explained. You can go to my website, crystaltantricyogi.com, if you want to join the community. And if you would like personal coaching to build body confidence and understand body consciousness on a like a more broad level, or like personally for you, to help you if you're trying to heal from trauma, or you're not being as successful in your relationships, or maybe there's some childhood wounds or something that you need to explore and unpack in a less traditional way, I'm here and I'm accepting new clients. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.